Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Sports Stuff video. Today, we are talking about my 2025 NFL trade deadline candidates. So, you guys do enjoy. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let's get into the video. So, basically, I have 5 guys I think have a very, very realistic chance of being traded by the NFL trade deadline, which is November 3rd, after week 9. Oh, sorry, before week 9 of the NFL season. So you have the first 8 weeks to kind of figure out what your team is. If you're 7-1, 6-2, you're gonna be a buyer. If you're 0-8, 1-7, you're gonna be a seller. So these are teams that not only do I think are gonna be selling their pieces, but also teams I think are gonna be buying the pieces that these teams are selling. So let's get into it. First off, I'm gonna have Trey Hendrickson being traded from the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the Bengals, as much as I think Joe Flacco's interesting for them, I think he is better than Jake Browning. I don't think that's going to change almost anything about their team. Trey Hendrickson this year has 7 tackles, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 9 run stops, and an 87 overall PFF grade. He signed a 1-year deal. Again, obviously, he tried getting an extension with the team this offseason. It reworked into a 1-year, $30 million deal, and so he can be a free agent next offseason. But I think the Bengals, the reason they re-signed him is they thought they could be contenders this year. But with Joe Burrow going down with injury, with Jake Browning playing bad, they trade for Joe Flacco to try and save everyone's jobs. If it comes down to it, I think there is a chance that the GM and owner could step in and say, you know what, we're gonna move on from Trey. Thank him for his time. If they sink, I think they definitely would sell off their parts. I think you can easily get a day 2 pick for Trey Hendrickson as well. This is a guy who still is putting up very good sacks, even though he's being double teamed at a very high rate. This is the trade I had put together. I had Indianapolis getting Trey Hendrickson and Cincinnati getting a 2026 second and a 2026 fourth. So the reason I think this is possible is I think one, Lou Anarumo, the former defensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals, is now the defensive coordinator of the Indianapolis Colts. And their pass rush for the Colts, while it's not the worst in the league, it is definitely not a Super Bowl winning pass rush group. I like Kwity Paye, I like Laiatu Latu, but the guys aren't there yet, right? There's no one there that is a premier pass rusher, and that's what Trey Hendrickson can be in this defense. They already signed Jermaine Pratt, who was released from the Raiders this week. I think it's a very real chance that the Colts are trying to gear up for a big trade because one, they've restructured a lot of deals today, whether it's Isaiah Rodgers, whether it's their linebacker, Zaire Franklin. They've already restructured multiple contracts as I'm recording this video. So there's a very real chance of gearing up for a very big trade, open up as much cap space for this season as they can. So when they make that big trade, they're not negative in the cap space. So I think a second and a fourth round pick for Trey Hendrickson at this point of his career, I think it's really good. I don't think he's gonna be that number 1 top 3 pass rusher in the league, but I think he's better than what you currently have. You give up a second and a fourth for an Indianapolis Colts team that currently is 4-1, is trying to make a deep playoff push. They've got their guy in Daniel Jones. They can trade for Trey Hendrickson. If he plays good the rest of the season, you extend him, and you have that premier pass rusher. And again, the Colts don't usually make these kind of big moves, but they trade for DeForest Buckner. And they had Grover Stewart already. They already did this for the defensive tackle room a couple of years ago. I think this is the final piece in this defense that they need. I do think corner, they could definitely go and get another person, but I said more as a free agency, post trade deadline, guys that get cut because they don't, the teams that are taking, like, you know what, we couldn't trade you, but we don't want you on our team anymore. That's the market where you go and improve your cornerback room depth. But Trey Hendrickson is the guy you go for to improve your defensive line. And as you can see, the Cincinnati Bengals did save $16 million of cap space this season. Obviously, it's a 1-year deal. Does not matter long term that money that you save. But I do think this is a move to get assets for a team that is not playing well in the Cincinnati Bengals to try and get, bolster their team's options in the offseason. And again, for the Colts, it's a win now move. Next up, we have Mark Andrews, a tight end for the Baltimore Ravens. Mark Andrews this season has 17 receptions, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I think everyone can agree Isaiah Likely is the future of this position. He's a better run blocker, he's a better receiver, and when healthy, Lamar Jackson is preferring him right now. Mark, the last few years, has been on a decline. I say probably since 2023, he's been on a very steep decline for what he once was. Get what you can for him. I think with name recognition alone, he is worthy of getting a solid bag. And there's teams out there that have a lot of tight end issues right now. I think the team that's going to go and trade for him is the Jacksonville Jaguars. In conference trade is rare, but I think it's going to happen. I think the Ravens get a 2026 fourth round pick, and the Jaguars get Mark Andrews. The Jaguars, they just traded for Greg Newsome. I think they double dip into the AFC North and they go and grab Mark Andrews. Brenton Strange is down for the next 4 or 5 games. I could easily see them going to grab Mark Andrews and then having Mark Andrews and Brenton Strange as their tight end group for this season. The Jaguars, they're 4-1. They're either 4-1 or they're 3-2. I can't remember. I believe they're 4-1. And this is a team that is surprising everyone in the NFL. You know, obviously a big game against Kansas City Chiefs. He beat them last week. Your defense, I think they're calling it Strapsonville because their secondary is doing amazing when it comes to turnovers. But their defense does not need to be touched. I wouldn't touch your defense anymore. You made the big move for Greg Newsome. I think Mark Andrews is the big move for tight end to try and really get the most out of Trevor Lawrence in this season that you're currently making for yourself. So the Jaguars, they take on the $11 million of cap hit for him. But again, it'd be in half because it's halfway through the season. It'd be more like $6 million you'd actually be taking on. And I believe they have the cap space to eat that $6 million. But if I'm the Jaguars, I make this move for Mark Andrews, get a guaranteed guy that you know has made a lot of big plays, is a multiple-time All-Pro. And for the Ravens, you open up that play time for Isaiah Likely. You get a 4th-round pick. You say, Mark, thank you for the great time you had in Baltimore, the 6 years that you gave us. We appreciate it. Go be great in Jacksonville. You know, be their starter and see what you can do for the rest of your career. Thirdly, I do believe Bradley Chubb for the Miami Dolphins is also going to be traded. Bradley Chubb this season has 7 tackles, 3 sacks, 0 forced fumbles, and 5 run stops. Miami, I truly believe, but when it comes to GM, head coach, and roster, they're going to clean house after the season. So I think get that jump start at the trade deadline and trade Bradley Chubb for anything while you can. Again, this is a dude that at any point could just fall off a cliff. He's had multiple injuries in his career. He's 29 years old, and he's playing pretty well this year. And on top of that, you have 2 years remaining on the contract with no guaranteed money left. I don't see a world where the Miami Dolphins, one, renegotiate Bradley Chubb's contract to redo his contract, give him more guaranteed money, because there's no way Bradley Chubb's going to next season with no guaranteed money. He's going to want to renegotiate his contract. I don't see Miami doing that for a 30-year-old pass rusher at that point. And on top of that, I just don't think Bradley Chubb wants to be in Miami anymore. I think, it comes to it, it's like, hey, Jalen Phillips is about to be out the door. I just don't think this is a place I want to try and win a championship anymore. When I got traded here, we were on up and up, and now we've completely stagnated and fallen off a cliff. Let me go somewhere else. I think you can easily get a draft pick for him. I'm going to do another rare in-division trade where the Miami Dolphins get a 2026 4th-round pick and the New England Patriots get Bradley Chubb. The Patriots, their pass rush has been atrocious, and I think Mike Vrabel would love to get a guy like Bradley Chubb. Again, in division, I don't think it's going to happen, but if he does get traded, I think the Patriots are going to be the team that giving him a call. And to get a 4th-round pick, again, you're kind of paying an in-division tax. I don't think Bradley Chubb is worth a 4th-round pick. I'd probably say a high 5th, right? If the Tennessee Titans wanted Bradley Chubb, that's a high 5th-round pick. But I think the Patriots, they're having a pretty good season. I think the pass rush group needs to get another guy to really take off the top, because Keion White has not really done well so far, and neither has the guy from Tennessee that Mike Vrabel signed over. I'm blanking on Harold Landry. Harold Landry really hasn't done anything this season either. Bradley Chubb, 3 sacks through 5 games, 5 run stops. Obviously he's definitely still dealing with nagging injuries, but it's a dude that you can buy, get him right now, help him propel your defense day one, and you take on. I think the Miami does eat a lot of dead cap. That's almost $11 million of dead cap they're going to hit. But at the same time, you're a team that's about to go through a major rebuild. Getting rid of Bradley Chubb, getting the assets, that's more important than the money right now. Next, I have Breece Hall from the New York Jets. The Jets are currently 0-5, and Breece Hall is not really doing anything for him. Surprisingly, right? Surprisingly, I think Breece Hall is a very good running back. But he had 66 carries, 351 yards, no touchdowns, and 5.3 yards per carry. He's having a good year, but for some reason, the Jets offense doesn't seem to prioritize him. They like to bring in Braylon Allen. They like to bring in Isaiah Davis. I don't know what's going on, why Tanner Eggstrand and Aaron Glenn don't like Breece Hall, but he's still a good running back. Definitely since his injury, his rookie season, there's definitely been some injuries, some issues. I think everyone can clearly see that. He definitely is not the same explosive guy he was before, but this is still a running back one, a very capable running back one option. He's going to be a free agent in 2026, and I don't see his team re-signing him. So at the trade deadline, I want to trade him, get whatever I can for him, and I'm going to go send him to the Arizona Cardinals. The Jets will get a 2026 3rd-round pick, and the Arizona Cardinals will get Breece Hall. get him to a Cardinals team that without James Conner, without Trey Benson, was starting Emery DeMarcado and Michael Carter, and just both guys that are not working out. So get Breece Hall, let him be the true running back one for a Kyler Murray offense. He's a great pass catcher, he's a great pass blocker, and he's a good running back. I think there's a lot of things that he can do in this offense that would elevate Kyler Murray's play and elevate this offense. And I think it'd be a great get for the Arizona Cardinals. You probably have to extend him once you trade for him, but that's a win-win for everyone. The Jets get off of Breece Hall, who they don't want to prioritize and they don't want to pay, and they get a day 2 pick out of it. Then the Cardinals get a Breece Hall, James Conner replacement for the long term, who you can sign to a pretty nice contract right away, and he's a great pass catcher, great pass blocker, and a good rusher all in one. I think it's a great deal for both teams. And again, the Jets this year, it saved $3.4 million, but the long-term play is you don't pay for Breece Hall and you get that 3rd-round pick who could be a player for you next year. Finally, the last 3 I think that is going to get traded at the trade deadline is Maxx Crosby. This is the big #1 storyline I think it's going to be going into the trade deadline for all players in all franchises. Maxx Crosby this season has 12 tackles, 2 sacks, 0 forced fumbles, and 13 run stops. You know, he's been talking a lot on his podcast about the future, but not only his future, but the future of the Raiders, if he wants to be here long term. In fact, I was reading a Reddit post recently today that he's been talking a lot about the Colts as well on his podcast. So I do think Indianapolis could be in the market for him, but I didn't want to do multiple Colts trades. I want to do different teams. Well, who would they trade and why? So the Raiders, they're going to be entering a rebuild right now. They signed Geno Smith, and it hasn't really worked out. This offensive line needs to be completely rebuilt. Ashton Jeanty is looking great. You need a true wide receiver 1, and everyone outside of Maxx Crosby on the defensive side of the ball is not going to be here in 2 years. So they're entering a rebuild. Maxx Crosby is at his peak right now. He's talking about his future on his podcast. There's already been disputes when he was signing his first extension about if he wanted to be here long term. And I think contenders are going to raise his value immensely because it's going to be a bidding war for Maxx Crosby. But I think the winners of this bidding war is going to be Tampa Bay. So Las Vegas, I do think, is going to be getting a 2026 first-round pick out of Tampa Bay. And Tampa, they get Maxx Crosby and a 2026 4th-round pick. So this is the big all-in move for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Everyone can agree the Bucs need a pass rusher. They have no pass rush threats. It is no one. Shaq Barrett is a shell of himself because, again, he's 30 years old, 31 years old. You lost Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who really busted and didn't really perform in Tampa Bay, and you didn't replace him. Yaya Diaby is a starter. I like Yaya Diaby, former Louisville, right? I really like Yaya Diaby coming out of the draft, but he is not a primary pass rusher. Maxx Crosby, though, is a primary pass rusher. You trade for him, you give him a massive extension, and say, Max, you're our premier pass rusher. Then maybe in the 3rd or 4th round this year, we're going to draft another pass rusher and see what we can do. But this is the all-in move for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Their offense is one of the best in the league, but their defense needs immense help. I like their secondary. I like their linebacker core good enough to not really do a big move for anyone, but their pass rush group needs help, and Maxx Crosby is going to be that help. He's going to be the elite pass rusher, elite run stopper that they need on the edge, and you trade for him. Yes, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers eat $33 million in cap hits, but I would, day 1, renegotiate his contract, lower that cap hit down to the base minimum, and give him a new 5-year deal, and say, you know what, I'm going to push all that money to the future because we need to win right now. So that has to be my 5 big trades I do think could happen during the NFL trade deadline. If you guys enjoy, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know in the comments down below, what trade do you like the most, what trade is not going to happen, and what player did I not mention that you think is going to get traded this year at the trade deadline. Again, if you guys enjoy, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Peace and bye.